Hi, this is Savannah,
And this is Brian from the Dorky Diva Show,
and you're listening to Starboars.
the best place for below average Star Wars.
The Dorky Diva Show presents
Why is this seat so much more comfortable?
the long-awaited sequel to the adventures of the Zolan Dart audio drama.
Have you seen the captain's datapad?
Trying to work, Murph.
Piloting the Zolan Dart by himself,
You do understand the details of this particular job, correct?
I've been on plenty of jobs like this. With you!
Reldar Sias returns to a planet he thought he'd left behind for good.
Is there a reason you didn't mention I was tagging along?
Hopefully having you there will make others think twice about messing with me.
Making new friends
Oh, you must be the pilot of the Zolan Dart, yes?
I guess I am.
and reconnecting with old ones,
Reldar?
Vera?
What are you doing here?
until past grudges resurface.
I'd be minding my own business if I were you.
Well, if your business wasn't being handled right in front of my face, maybe I could mind my own business. We have to leave. Now.
Why the rush all of a sudden?
We're in trouble.
If it isn't little Reldar Sias.
Hey, Yorick. Long time no see.
Roz already knows you're here.
Oh,
Look who decided to come home.
Reldar must confront his origin,
I must admit, I never saw this as being a part of your past, Softshell.
or let it define his future.
I will get what is owed to me, no matter the cost.
because what Roz is trying to do is wrong.
Says you.
My blasters, we're going to need these. Take that, Sleemo!
Who do you think you are?
The Adventures of the Zolan Dart, Episode 2, coming soon.
Welcome to Starboars, best place for below average Star Wars.
Hello there, and welcome to the Star Wars Show, the best place for below average Star Wars. I am the Jolly Jedi Pete, and we're going to do things a little bit differently with today's special episode. Obviously, it's usually myself interviewing some really awesome special guests who love Star Wars or been involved in Star Wars, or it's also me and some of our other awesome hosts. Obviously, Jason, Kat, Ian, former founder Alan in the past, and sort of being the glue that keeps the show together when we're all speaking about Star Wars. But today it's going to be different. Co-host Jason Hondo Ling is going to interview me about Star Wars, so I've got no notes, I've done no prep, and I'm just going to sit back, relax, and just answer any and every question that Jason has to throw at me. So without further ado, let's throw it over to Jason Hondo Ling. Jason, how are you doing?
Brilliant, Pete, and you?
I'm very good, thank you. I'm excited. Obviously, I don't know what you've prepared, but I'm excited to just dive in and just talk Star Wars with you.
That's cool. No, I'm looking forward to it, and obviously we've done quite a few of these over the last year and a bit, so it's quite nice to actually get the chance to ask you a few questions. So I'm going to kick it off with obviously starting off with obviously most of the listeners will know that yourself and I met through the Dorky Diva group. And then obviously you kindly asked me if I wanted to hop on and join in with the fun, which we did. And then obviously we hadn't met, so we got the first chance to meet up at this year's celebration. So my first question is going to go to Celebration and say, what was your most favourite part of this year's event? And that can be Celebration or anything around it.
I think it's the people, like really easy answer. It's the people. I think, the panels are awesome and the merchandise is awesome, and everyone knows how much I love merchandise, in particular Star Wars merchandise. But I think it's the people. So I think obviously, I got to meet yourself for the first time. I got to meet Kat, or other co-host Kat for the first time. I got to meet Ian, our fourth host, for the second time. And really hang out in sort of the Star Wars environment. I think, where I was staying, obviously staying with some awesome people from Jedi News, I got to meet Mark and Steve, who I've interviewed on the show before. And it was fantastic to meet those guys and spend time with those guys. Mark's wonderful family, there. So, great to hang out with those guys. I think, obviously, a big shout out to Moore, probably the biggest Star Wars Lego fan in the world. Got to hang out with him, which was really, really cool. I got to see some old friends I haven't seen in a while. Speaking of the Dorky Diva, I met the Dorky Diva Savannah at Star Wars Celebration London in 2016. So got to hang out with Savannah and see Savannah and Brian Balance. Brian's cousin Jared was over. Got to meet him, hang out with him. Got to see some awesome. I love Star Wars podcasts, not just this one. And I got to see some of the best in the business perform live on the Star Wars podcast stage. Charlotte and Caitlin from Sky Talkers, who are the best podcast on the planet, not just Star Wars, but any podcast. I think Brandon from Talking B94, fantastic. Even new people, so a few nights in the bars, got to meet a guy called Alden who has a Star Wars podcast and he loves professional wrestling. Got to talk that with him. Gustavo, some awesome people I met just in and around in the bars and stuff. So for me, the people was the best thing, because it was people who I love to meet up with every weekend and have a few beers with, or a few non-alcoholic beers if they don't drink, but get together and just chat. Obviously, you don't get to do that because of sort of where we live around the world and in the country. So that was Star Wars Celebration brought us all together, but it was the people being together which I thought was the best thing. And the panels were awesome, and so was the merchandise, and so was everything, all the cosplay you could see on the show floor, and all that stuff was awesome as well. But for me, it is the people, and getting to spend more time with people who you would love to spend more time with, but it's just not feasible in this world we live in.
Yeah, no, definitely. I've got to agree with you there, because obviously I know I've said about it in the past. For me, it was meeting up with a lot of the guys from the groups like the UK Garrison, Rebel Legion, R2 Droid Builders, or UK Droid Builders, and obviously the Mando Mercs as well. And seeing some of those guys, a lot of them because of COVID, I hadn't seen for 3 or 4 years, and it brought it all back. And also, I got to meet a lot of people like the like the guys you've just mentioned. Meeting Savannah and Brian was absolutely brilliant, because they were what brought me into the podcast world. And it was just one of those events that, and there was so much stuff going on. Obviously, as you said, you and I were sort of bouncing. Um, I was more towards working with the Jedi News stuff, which was good, but it took up a lot of time. But I enjoyed it, and those guys keep us all busy. And so all in all, I think the celebration was an event where, like you say, it was the meeting of the people. I did very few panels, but meeting the people made it for me. Right now, going on to the people we met, I'm going to go on to question number 2 for you. And this comes from our friend Ian Slater, who we got a chance to have our photo taken with, and his lovely daughter, in their Mandalorian costumes. And he's come up with the question for you that he knows. Obviously, you've started collecting vintage toys, like he does, and he said, which one of your vintage toys is your favourite, and is there a Grail toy that you really want?
So my vintage collection is pretty small, I would say. I started collecting vintage during COVID, Sort of there's something to do on eBay, and I found quite a few figures for quite cheap. I'm not buying anything on card at the minute as much as I would love to. I'm not buying anything too minty or too rare, like a blue snaggletooth, for example. He's out the price range.
Yeah.
So I just thought of collecting them, and that, my idea is, if I get one of every original Star Wars figure, and then from that point on, then try and get one of every original Star Wars figure with their full accessory range and soft goods. And then from there, just keep moving up. And it'll probably take us forever if I ever do it, but it's a cool little thing to do. And like I said, you can get some of them for quite cheap. And I try not to buy betas, which if anyone doesn't listen, betas is a term for like a heavily played with, paint scratched off, loose limbs toy. So I try to avoid betas if I can, but I think that's too mint. And I'm quite new to it, so I've got a guidebook that I use. And also, if you follow the podcast on TikTok, you'll see me sort of looking at some of the figures I've bought and using that book. So one thing I did pick up recently, well, not recently, I picked it up probably 6 months ago, but it's sort of been in storage while I was moving house. So I do have a Leia from Return of the Jedi in a Bouche disguise, and that did come with helmet accessory and staff.
Cool.
And the figure itself is, it's got one of the things with those stiff limbs. If it's got stiff limbs, it hasn't been played with too much, and the limbs haven't came off. And the paint job's pretty cool. There's a few. It's not the most perfect of paint jobs, but it's pretty cool. And I think I paid £25 for it, so it wasn't too expensive. I got that at a toy fair at Gateshead National Stadium. So that's probably my favourite figure I've got at the minute because of the condition it's in, and I found it with all of its accessories. So yeah, I really, really dig that. But I love it all. I was just at Tynemouth Market 2 weekends ago, and you just scroll the market, and come across a guy who had selling a lot of like weird DVDs and stuff, and then he had a little box with figures in, vintage Star Wars figures, and looking through them, well, there's a lot of sort of really damaged ones and heavy play with ones. But I found a General Mandini, from Return of the Jedi, with his beard's all there, his hair's there except for a few bits that have come, like the paint's come off, but it's not too bad, and he was there. And then I also always get these two mixed up. I think it's Forlom. Again, stiff limbs on the Forlom, and again, paint job's pretty cool. Like a few marks, nothing too bad. And I was able to pick, and don't get us wrong, this bin, because it was a loose bin with loose figures, and a lot of them were really badly damaged, really badly played with. But these two were stiff limbs, pretty good paint jobs, and I think he was charging like £3 each. And I just went, oh, can I take two for £5? And he's like, yeah. So I got like two for a £5, and it's just, that's the fun of it for me. It's like, do you know what I mean? Like, and it doesn't come with an accessory. So in the future, as I said, if I come across these again at a good price with the full accessories they came with, I'll pick them up and then maybe move these ones on. But yeah, so like I haven't got anything big. Like I said, that Leia in the Bouche disguise is probably my favourite one so far, just because of how good the paint job is and because it came with all its accessories. But yeah, sort of, I love it. I love it all, I suppose. Yeah, I mean, thinking about Holy Grail. So, does he mean Holy Grail as in Grail Vintage?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, to go with your collection that you've started, the one. So
probably vehicles, and I think I've got my Millennium Falcon, which is a '90s kind of Millennium Falcon, which is it's heavily battered and broken, sort of thing. That's on display here in the office now, because of just what it means to us, But I think vintage wise, if you could get like the original Millennium Falcon from when it got released, sort of mint in box, that would be the Grail, wouldn't it? But I mean, I'm in no way am I in a situation to be able to pay for that. Plus, I don't know what I'll do with it, because if you've got it, do you open it? Do you not? Once you open it, it's no longer mint in box, and how much that costs? It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
So probably that, or Grail wise, maybe just one of each figure from the original lineup, like with all their accessories, maybe would be pretty cool to have on display in a cabinet, even if they weren't quite mint. You know what I mean? But if they were sort of in an all right state, I think that would be really cool. But yeah, that's probably where I am with that. So yeah, I need to get the vintage collection out actually, because I've literally got Bouche layers in front of us and Fall Armor and General Mandini are in front of us, but the rest are still in storage. My office at the minute is pretty messy as I've started to unbox the stuff from storage since I moved in. So
For,
I've got some stuff to start unboxing and putting together. Then I actually need to count because I've lost count of how many of the figures I've got. It's probably around the 20 mark, I think. But I need to see who I've got and who I haven't, and start getting back on the big hunt again to, like I said, try and get one of every one, I suppose. And I said there's no hurry to do that, but just, anybody who collects figures knows that itch you get, and you've got to scratch that figure itch. In the air, so it might be something that's never attainable, in the short term, but that's the fun of it, is finding it and bringing it home.
it sounds like me now that I've started collecting the Micro Galaxy Squadron stuff. That's turned into a real itch that needs scratching.
So for that one, for me, I've told myself I'm only going to get the Chase variants at the minute. So I've got the Luke's X-Wing from Mandalorian Season 2 finale as a Chase variant, and now when we go to the shops, even with Louise, my wife, we'll check to see if there's any variants on the shelf. But if there's not, then we'll sort of move on at the moment.
No. Right. Next question.
Just a shout out, obviously. Thanks very much for taking an interest in the vintage collection, Ian, and just want to let you know, I really wish you lived up here, because I would love to come and see some awesome Fleetwood Mac, because I know Ian performs an awesome Fleetwood Mac tribute.
Yeah, definitely. I have to admit, I've got to try and organise going up to the Midlands and hopefully going and catching Ian in concert somewhere, because I'd really like to see him.
Somebody needs to bring Ian and his Fleetwood Mac tribute to the big market in the Tune, and I'll actually have loads of beers, watch the awesome Fleetwood Mac tribute, and then have a tasty kebab on the way home. Perfect night.
Definitely. Oh dear. Right, next question. Of all of the announced Star Wars projects at the present time, what is the one that excites you the most?
Ooh, trying to think what they all are now. Does that include things that are about to come out but haven't come out yet?
Yeah.
So I think probably Acolyte. So I think Acolyte interested me. We've spoken this a while, so So Acolyte always interests us because the whole sort of the dark side lore and the artifacts and dark side artifacts. Maybe it hinted at could be a part of this series. Obviously, being Star Wars Celebration, saw a sneak peek of Star Wars Acolyte at the end of the High Republic panel, and Acolyte is actually part of the High Republic. It's the very end of the High Republic by the looks of it. So yeah, it's so intrigued to see how sort of the beginning of the fall of the Jedi and the rise of the Sith is going to tie into the series The Acolyte, while also it looks like it's going to be like Bulletproof Monk but Star Wars, like the Matrix but Star Wars, like the way some of the things I've seen. So yeah, probably most excited for The Acolyte just because I was really bought in anyway, and then the clip that showed at Celebration just bought us in even more. So I'll probably say The Acolyte just because it's essentially going to tie in the High Republic era to the prequel era. So it's going to tie in sort of the whole publishing initiative from Lucasfilm into sort of George Lucas's Star Wars, the prequels. And I think that's just going to be pretty epic. But I'm excited for it all. To be fair, I mean, Ahsoka's, weeks away. Do you know what I mean? So excited for Ahsoka, but I think the thing that's really got me juices going is the Acolyte, just because it's going to be pretty unknown. If that makes sense. So you know, with Ahsoka, I'm going to love it, and I'm actually absolutely going to mark out when I see Ezra, when I see Chopper, when I see Hera, when I see Thrawn. When we see all these people, it's going to be awesome. But I think with the Acolyte, it's going to be very intriguing, new people, new places, mixed in with some of the old. Don't get us wrong, connective bits that connect the High Republic and the prequels to it. But I'm excited to see. I'm excited for the unknownness of Acolyte and how it's going to tie into sort of the lore of the Jedi and the Sith. I'll see Acolyte, but I'm pumped for Ahsoka as well coming.
Yeah, but obviously with me it's Ahsoka all the way, but that's purely because obviously I love the character of Ahsoka. I love the whole Clone Wars, which I'm rewatching again, and I love the fact that she then came into Rebels, which actually leads on to the second question that Ian asked me, which is actually a really interesting one, and I'm going to have to go back to how he worded it, because it's something I don't know if you've seen bouncing around on the internet, Pete, but there's a theory going around about the whole part of obviously Rebels with the World Between Worlds, where obviously Ezra pulled Ahsoka through and saved her from the fight from Vader. And apparently there's a theory going around that this point, actually, the World Between Worlds had caused almost two different timelines in canon. And one of those is the one where Ahsoka survived and then goes on to meet Grogu and guide him towards Luke. And obviously, then we see the arc that we've seen in The Mandalorian. And the other timeline is when Ahsoka's not saved and dies. And therefore, obviously, Grogu never meets her. He's led to the dark side. And the whole fall of the Jedi, of Luke's Jedi, in that from the sequel trilogy stems from this timeline. What do you think about that idea?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to unpack there. I think
Yeah.
I think I don't really give it too much attention, to be honest, and don't really buy into it. I think Mando and Grogu found Ahsoka, who pointed them in the direction of the Seeing Stone, which reached out to any Force user, I suppose, and then Luke came and rescued him. But then, by the next season, Grogu's left Luke anyway. So that's the good timeline, and he leaves Luke. Then it's it's not as if he stayed with Luke and became a Jedi Knight. Does that make sense? So, and then to say he would join the dark side again, just because if they don't find Ahsoka, then doesn't mean they find the dark side user to turn the dark side.
No.
That's my thoughts on that sort of thing. And I think they'll stay away from separate timelines, because I think if you look at what's going on at the minute in sort of pop culture movies, Marvel, they've got a whole multi thing going on with not only with the MCU but also with the animated Spideyverse. DC have got it going on with the Flash, which is doing not the best at the box office currently. As its first week. I've seen the movie Flash. I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. It's not the best movie of all time or anything like that, but I enjoyed it for what it was. So I think one of the things that keeps Star Wars different is that it's more like modern myth than pop culture, if that makes sense. Even though it is pop culture, but it's more modern myth than pop culture, and that's what keeps it separate from things like that. If that makes sense. So
yeah,
I think they'd stay away from different timelines in how that would affect sort of the canon, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I agree. It was an interesting one, and Ian mentioned it to me, and then typically, all of a sudden, I caught a glimpse of something on Facebook where someone was talking about this exact thing, and I thought, oh, it's another one of those things with the fan, ideas, and there's the obsession with trying to get rid of the fact that the sequels ever happened, which isn't going to happen because they happened, and it's all canon.
I just think if that was going to happen, they wouldn't be bringing Daisy Ridley back for a movie. Do you know
exactly.
I mean? The studio's obviously moving forward with those events, and with Daisy Ridley being sort of the next Jedi Master, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that they wouldn't be doing that if that was the case. And I think if you look at what they're doing with the Mandalorian and the Mandoverse that's being coined, they're building towards sort of here at the Empire with Thrawn, and Dave Filoni's doing that movie. I think there's a lot of storytelling to get it there without actually looking at when you go tell a different timeline about Grogu. They're not going to have the time to do that, because they've got a lot of work to set up with Thrawn. They've got a lot of work to set up with Ezra. They've got a lot of work to set up with sort of the New Republic in the First Order, which is what they're doing as well. And again, they're sort of telling that story of the First Order which when they first announced it, they said they would do that. And after season 1 of Mando, it was like, oh, are they actually doing the origins of the First Order? But as the show is advancing, like you can see that they are going that way. And they've shown the Imperial spies within the New Republic and things like that, and the struggles of the New Republic in that last season there. So yeah, I don't think we're going to get alternate timelines. As in, we might get shown like alternate moments in time.
Yeah,
that makes sense. But we're not going to get like fully fledged. It'll be like visions, like. And when I say visions, I don't mean Star Wars Visions, the series. I mean like visions in the Force, like like Luke, like when Luke slices off Vader's hand, and he looks at his own hand in Return of the Jedi and he squeezes it, and you get that awesome cinematography and feeling. Like Luke realizes he's, in that moment, Luke almost flashes between his eyes as like him becoming a Dark Lord of the Sith, and he doesn't want to do that, so he pulls back. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So it's like like I think like moments like that where it's like. Take the Clone Wars, the Yoda arc, when Yoda's confronted with like the Dark Yoda, and it's a Force trick, and it's like a vision. Do you know what I mean? And it's like what would happen if like Yoda was dark side, and like, do you know what I mean? So we might get something like that where it's like, oh, like if this person was dark side, what would? But it's about like showing it, and then that person be like, actually, no, I'm going to recoil from that because I don't want to become that. And it's like a
bit like what they. Yeah, a bit like what they did with Daisy Ridley in The Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like the same, so what George said, Star Wars is poetry. It rhymes. Like, we've just named 3 different times it's happened there, and we haven't even thought about it to even look into researching it. Do you know what I mean? We've just cited 3 times where we've worked out, where it has been used. And it's a good tool to use, I think. Flashbacks or, fake flash forwards or like visions. That vision in the whole sequel trilogy where it's like Kylo Ren and the Knights of Ren sort of in the rain at Luke's school, and like judging by the comics and stuff, that like that doesn't never take place. But there's a vision there where it's like Rey's seen it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, definitely. Right, well, I've got another one which sort of leads on to this, leads on from this, because obviously, as we've mentioned, like with Grand Admiral Thrawn and the way everything's looking like the heir to the Empire, storylines sort of being played out in its own sort of way, with Dave Filoni obviously taking the lead and crafting what I'm sure is going to be a brilliant story. Obviously, when Disney decided to turn the old expanded universe into the Legends version, which character that currently hasn't shown up in Star Wars in the canon would you like to see come back from Legends?
See, I've read Legends a lot when I was like a kid, so I haven't really held on to too much of like the stories. And then I suppose the big characters, I suppose, have been brought in. Your likes of your Thrawn and things like that. First of all, I just want to say I think it was a good decision what they did to make canon, to make the EU sort of Legends and not canon, and then like everything else going forward being canon. Like I agree with that and the right way to go. And I agree with the fact that it means they can bring these Legends characters in and fit them into canon like organically and subtly, and how they fit into Star Wars, nice and organic, which I think that's what they've done with Thrawn. And they play the long game of Thrawn, where you've arrived in Star Wars Rebels, they released the first trilogy of books, and the second trilogy of books, and then we're going to get the big bad, and then it looks like we're going to get a sort of not a retelling, but basically a retelling of Heir to the Empire and how it fits into not just sort of Thrawn, but also how it fits into the rise of the First Order, if that makes sense. I think it's going to link in perfectly, probably, in ways we can't imagine right now for when that happens. I don't know. I think a cool character is obviously Mara Jade. I think she's always looked cool. The ginger hair, the black, the cape, the purple lightsaber. I think obviously Luke's wife in some of the Legends books. For me, I don't think she necessarily needs to be Luke's wife. But I think as like hand of the Emperor, which is almost similar to what the Inquisitors are in sort of the new canon, like could Mara Jade be brought in as some sort of Inquisitor, or assassin for the Empire, for the Emperor. Quite possibly. And I think, again, aesthetically, she looks really cool. She's a fantastic action figure. She's very toyetic. So maybe Mara Jade. Trying to think who else. I don't know if we class like video game characters from like games that are now legends, but like Darth Nihilus from Knights of the Old Republic 2. So
that'd be cool.
So he's a Sith Lord who his mask is it's not like Ghostface, but it's like, it's white and it has like it's almost like porcelain white. It's like a cross between Phantom of the Opera meets Star Wars almost. That makes sense.
Yeah, I know which one you mean, and yeah, that'd be pretty awesome to see that sort of character appear.
Yeah, so obviously, Darth Nihilus is obviously a Sith Lord, so we could go back and tell old stories of the Sith, bring him into canon that way, which would fit into Acolyte, I suppose, dealing with old Sith Lords. I don't think they'll be active during that period, but like the Sith we meet from meeting Acolyte could talk about Nihilus maybe. And I think obviously, if you think about Darth Nihilus, his descriptions that, he gets lost to the dark side, that he became an endless hungry void is the description. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah,
so yeah.
It's got
maybe someone like that I think would be really cool. I'm trying to think who else now. So yeah, that'll probably be my two. Would be those guys.
That's pretty cool. I have to admit, Mara Jade was one of mine, although I sort of had a different idea, which was I like the idea that even Mark Hamill sort of alluded to, of obviously he's said that he's got no problem with another actor playing Luke Skywalker in a different time sort of thing. And obviously he's played the original Luke Skywalker and then the older Luke Skywalker in the sequels. And the actor that the deepfake stuff they've done with his face as Luke Skywalker, I think Sebastian Stan could tell some of the stories, maybe bridging between obviously Return of the Jedi and when we get to the Force Awakens. And I like the idea of we could get more Luke Skywalker and what happened with the Jedi, and obviously Mara Jade could quite easily fit into that. But it's just one of those things that it's an idea that I've seen that I think actually it could work, and I would like to see it, but they'll probably never do it.
If they were to do a series and say Sebastian Stan is Luke Skywalker, who would you cast as Mara Jade? I would cast Scarlett Johansson as Mara Jade.
See, yeah, that's one. The other one, because I'm a big fan of hers, and I think she's quite cool in the way she does it, is Karen Gillan, who was obviously in Doctor Who. I think she could. She's proven that she can do the darker side of things with Guardian of the Galaxy, so I think she could be quite cool.
Definitely a good show.
But yeah, right. Now this is a good one. I'm quite proud of this one. Obviously, Star Wars, one of the things that everyone knows is all the different ships. So if you could fly any one of the ships, which one would it be?
Ooh, I don't know. Obviously, Millennium Falcon's awesome. Everyone loves the Millennium Falcon. That's definitely on the short list. The X-Wing. The X-Wing is iconic. Do you know what I mean? It's like the X-Wing is iconic. Even the TIE Fighter, I don't think I would fly a standard TIE, but like a TIE Interceptor or a TIE Advanced. Those things look fantastic. Trying to think.
Yeah.
Ooh, there's a lot of awesome ships out there. Look at Amidala ships. The Naboo ships are beautiful, especially those chrome plated royal ones. saw the M1 Starfighters, like they're fantastic design, very tough. I'm probably going to say the Millennium Falcon just because, we've seen it fly through asteroid fields, we've seen it fly through the Death Star. The adrenaline rush you get and the feeling you get when those things happen, it's wonderful. Look at the sequels, we see it when Rey turns to the Falcon and we'll take the junk, and like the camera turns, just the feeling you get just looking at it. I think in The Last Jedi, when you see how Chewie flies it sort of through the cracks in the planet's surface of Crate. So yeah, probably go with Millennium Falcon, but
yeah,
the best thing about all the Star Wars ships is that they're quite often like there's so many different types that all fit in with the different cultures that like they're all uniquely Star Wars, but all unique. If that makes sense. So it's like, yeah, like the Falcons would be what I'd choose, but if you came and gave us an X-wing, I'd still be happy. If you came and gave us a TIE Interceptor, I'd still be happy. Yeah, part of it. I mean, maybe the bigger ships. Imagine if imagine flying a Star Destroyer. Obviously, you wouldn't be like doing it all yourself because you have a crew. But that must be pretty. You must feel pretty powerful and like inside a Star Destroyer. If you're in command of a Star Destroyer.
Definitely. I saw quite an interesting video that someone's done on the internet the other day, where they've basically done computer graphics of all the different ships from Star Wars, and then they've landed them in like a city, just an ordinary like city, could be anywhere in the world, where you've got like people in their cars and they've landed the ships beside them to show the sort of scale that you get. Now obviously they start off with like the smaller ships, and then they start showing like the Star Destroyers that basically tower over the entire city, and then it finishes off with they put up the Death Stars. And it was just a brilliant computer animation that I'd seen. It really tickled me, but it also I'd go for something slightly different with my favourite ship, because I like the idea of flying a Y-wing, because to me that just it's got a bit of grit to it. It looks like a bit of a ship that's been cobbled together but could still see quite a bit of action.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Y-wings like the workforce bomber, the rebellion. Do you know what I mean? Like the work hard ship. You know what I mean? The battered and they've been through a lot, but they still go and they still pack a punch when you use them. And they're a bit more, they're a bit less glitzy in the X-wings, for example, and a bit less maneuverable, but pack a punch and are still integral to the fleet.
Yeah, definitely. Right. Now, I think this is no, I've got one more after this, but this one's one for you. Obviously, Dave Filoni talks in the Gallery documentary that's on Disney Plus about his first meeting with George Lucas, and how even though he was convinced he wasn't going to get the job at Lucasfilm Animation, he knew that he could at least walk out of the room and say, "I've sat in the room with George Lucas." If you got the chance to sit in the room with George Lucas and you were allowed one question, what would it be?
I think for me with George, I wouldn't ask him about Star Wars. So I've only got one question. I probably wouldn't ask about Star Wars because if it was just normal conversation, if it turned to Star Wars, then fair enough. But I think, George is such a, he's quite a, he's not on social media. He keeps himself to himself. He doesn't make things about him. He's almost got like very little ego in that regard. And, he's got quite a dry and cheeky sense of humor. So sometimes he says things that like, gets taken out of hand, I think, and people take him very literal when he's actually being funny sometimes. But, I think, he's got a lot of views in the world, like good views. So I would love to know, like, what his thoughts are. I mean, I love to talk about his new museum, the Lucasfilm Museum of Narrative Art. That's coming, like why is he doing that? And, like what sort of legacy is he hoping to leave with that? And like, what pieces does he want to require for it? And that will lead to all different kinds of conversations off the back of asking about that, I think. But I love to know. I would
Yeah,
love to know
that's
about like what makes him tick. You know, we know he's influenced by Kurosawa, like, do you know what I mean? But I love to get in depth with him about things like that. You know, the things that motivate him. You know, what's he read this month or this year that he's enjoyed? What's he seen this month that he's enjoyed? I love to know what's George Lucas watching and consuming. You know, story wise today, and like how does it make him feel? I think that would be quite powerful conversation to have. I think. Do you know what I mean? Like, I would love to just ask him like, oh, like what's the best 5 books you've read in the past 3 years? Do you know what I mean? And I think like,
yeah, that's
and you know, who knows what he would say, but it would be really interesting to find out. You know,
yeah, definitely.
what's his favorite movies in the last decade? Like, you know, it would be interesting to, and that would stem a whole different conversation because he's definitely watching and reading like all kinds of things. Do you know what I mean? I think something else I like asking as well. I know I'm cheating here, but like, you know, he must be making movies
Yeah,
in the last 2 decades. I think he's definitely been making. So like, I would love to know like what's he been making for himself, like, because you know he's not making any movies for like general consumption, but like, or like, is he had any ideas for anything he wants to make? And I'm not talking Star Wars. I'm talking just generally here. Like, do you know what I mean?
yeah,
I would love to know like that type of thing.
yeah. No, that's like you say. I'd probably like to ask him how it felt handing over Lucasfilm, because obviously he built this huge thing. You know, it was a work. It wasn't just a film production. You know, it was all the special effects, ILM, and all this. And obviously, hand that over after all those years and all that hard work must have been pretty heart wrenching for him. Uh,
Oh, you know, he's had his legacy over. Do you know what I mean? But I think he was ready to retire. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
And try to put it in the best hands he could. And he's had strong links to Disney since he was a child. But obviously, you know, his apprentice sort of took over the company in Kathleen Kennedy, and then like his other apprentice in Dave Filoni's like sort of doing a lot of story work there. So
yeah,
don't get us wrong. I think there's things that's happened there that he maybe thought he would have more say on, but I think generally he's probably happy that he's not sort of,
yeah,
you know, he gets to be relaxed. You know, he's creating his museum, Lucas Museum and Narrative Art, which is going to be awesome. Um, you know, he spent time with his kids, his wife, and like I said, who knows what he's reading or watching, but he'll be doing a lot of that, and you know, it'd be interesting to find out like what he is enjoying. I think, and I think, you know, it's probably been hard to let go of Star Wars and Lucasfilm originally, but I think probably now he's probably feeling probably used to it. If that makes sense, and he's probably really enjoying not having that stress.
yeah,
Cause,
yeah.
you
No,
know, it's
definitely.
one of those things where, you know, obviously, you know, there's pockets of fandom that don't like the sequel trilogies. We've spoke about that, are, you know, speaking out about it, and that's fine. But like, don't think that's a new thing because George isn't there, because you know, there was not necessarily the same people, but like there was pockets of people when the prequels came out who tried to, you know, hate on that. So, you know,
Yeah,
like we've all seen the South Park episode where it's like George Lucas and Steven Spielberg ruining things. Like, do you know what I mean? So like, it's
yeah,
not new, and it hasn't happened because he's got rid of it. And you know, I've seen people like, oh, like George will come back, and George wouldn't come back because George knows what it was. George knows what you said about him back then.
yeah,
So you
yeah,
couldn't pay George to come back right now. He doesn't need any money. He's got infinite amounts of cash because, you know, the Disney deal was quite cheap when you think about what they got, but what he got paid in stock options and what he's probably getting off like residuals, you know, his family's never have to work a day in their lives, which, you know, they will work because that's how he's brought them up. But do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, but you know, again, it's not, you know, he's being where Kathleen Kennedy is now, and having people like sort of loud people sort of not being very nice to them, and you know, he doesn't want
yeah.
to go through that.
No, definitely. Right, I've got my final question, which is sort of a two-parter for you. So obviously, not met a huge amount, but I know I've met a few, and I know you've met a few. But who's your favourite Star Wars actor that you've met, and or person involved with Star Wars, and who is the one person from the Star Wars other than George Lucas that you'd really like to meet?
Oh, that's a tough one. So I think, I've had really positive experiences with Dave Filoni. I've met Dave Filoni, and Doug Chang as well. Also, really positive experience with Timothy Zahn, the man who created Throne himself. Actually, almost knocked him over by accident at a convention. But we had a nice. Obviously, I apologise for his accident. He wasn't a bit of bother. We had a bit chat about Throne after. You know what I mean? So we got a picture. So that was quite cool. I'm trying to think. I've had some interactions with like some of the Clone Wars voice cast, which was quite cool. D. Bradley Baker and his name escapes you now. The voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Jonathan. No.
His name is escapes us, but yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say because I met him at Celebration. I took a photograph of him at Celebration. And
James
I
Arnold
can never
Taylor.
remember.
He's called James
That's
Arnold.
it. Arnold Taylor.
So yeah.
Sorry, James Arnold Taylor.
So I'm trying to think who. So yeah, I'd say they're all pretty nice and all pretty cool moments. So that was fun. Trying to think if who I would like to meet. Probably, probably Mark Hamill. To be honest with you, he's been through the original trilogy, been through the sequel trilogy. He's had Star Wars define his life for quite a long time. So I think he would be a great person to sort of meet and have an interaction with. Would be Mark Hamill, sort of away from the signing table, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I love to bump into the coffee shop, buy him a coffee, and then just like pick his brain for half an hour. Do you know what I mean? Would be
yeah. Yeah, maybe we'll have to try and get him on the podcast, someone, Pete.
Yeah. He's one of those type of guys. Right? I remember when they did that sort of there was a TV show. It was like trying to reunite the Star Wars cast, and I remember like they were saying they couldn't afford Mark Hamill because he was charging too much. But like to me, that wasn't Mark Hamill charging too much. I think it was Mark Hamill sort of not wanting to say no. So it was like, well, he has a price that he's not going to be able to meet, so it just avoids it. And like if you were real fans, the way he came across in looking at talk to us would be different, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because I think he's a very giving guy when the things are right, and I think he's the type of guy who, like, if you bump him in the street, he'd sign whatever you had, if you thought you were genuine.
Yeah.
For free. He's the same guy who, when you pay him a lot of money for a singing channel, he gets the feeling it's maybe just going to get sort of put online to make money. I think he feels a bit like, he wants to see the joy in people's faces rather than the sort of the profiteering, I suppose. But no, just obviously he's been through a lot of decades of Star Wars, so it'd be great. And you have stories about Star Wars legends that have been and gone and passed away. And then you'll have stories about the future legends of Star Wars, I suppose. To talk about, and Mark again is a guy who I'd imagine, I think he's quite bright. He obviously, I think he probably consumes a lot of movie stories. I'll have to see what he's watching and reading and how he's enjoying that. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, no, there's so many of them, and I think I would have straight away picked Mark Hamill, because he's just a legend. And when you see some of the stuff that he puts on social media, he's not afraid to say it as he sees it.
No, definitely not.
No, but yeah. Well, Pete, I've got to the end of the questions, so I've got to say thank you for letting me have this opportunity of actually interviewing the man himself, and it's been great fun, and I've enjoyed it.
No, definitely. I've had great questions. I've fully enjoyed being able to just relax and just talk Star Wars without having to plan anything. So I very much appreciate the work you put in, Jason. Thank you very much.
That's great.
So, out of curiosity, I have a question for you. Obviously, which micro galaxy squadrons from Jazzwares have you got currently, and which ones do you want in the future?
Well, I've got obviously I've got the Millennium Falcon that Jazzwares kindly gave me at Celebration
That
because
the
it
chase
was
variant
the
for
yeah that
Galaxy's Edge.
yeah that's the Galaxy's Edge one, which obviously, as everyone knows, my nickname's Hondo. And trying to get Hondo merchandise in the UK is virtually impossible. You know, so unless you go to Galaxy's Edge, and when they heard that my nickname was Hondo, they decided to give me the Millennium Falcon with Hondo, and it was greatly appreciated, and it sort of started off my collection. So I've now got the Razor Crest. I've got the Boba Fett's starship. Um, I've got a Sarge Ventress ship, which I was quite pleased to get off of Amazon, and it's a nice little ship, one of the smaller, cheaper models. Um, I'm kicking myself because I was going to get Bo-Katan's ship, and I held off, and it's now doubled in price from what I could have got it for. Um, and the one that I really, really, really want to get, and I keep looking out for, but seems to be so difficult to get over in the UK, is Sabine's X-Wing, with all that brilliant artwork on it. So that's my challenge at the moment. But this weekend I did pick up. I don't know if the smaller. I know we got given some when we were at Celebration, the mystery vehicle boxes.
Yeah, the blind packs. Yeah.
Um, the blind packs. I picked up the local Tesco's was selling them off £4.50. So I picked up a couple. And I got Mando on his speeder, which has got a rather cool little Grogu in his bag next to it. I also got a clone trooper on a speeder bike, and I got the chase vehicle, which was Anakin Skywalker on it's like one of the bikes that you normally see the droids flying around on.
Oh, the snap
Um, yes, that's it.
from the
Yeah,
Clone Wars
so
movie.
I picked that up as well. So yeah, I was quite pleased with those three little ones. Um, so yeah, the collection. I'm looking forward to delving deeper into it. There's a lot going around at the moment, though. It's hard to get hold of the stuff in the UK. So I think we might have to see what we can find out from Jazzwares.
No, definitely. And from what I gather, because I know UK distribution hasn't been the best, just because they haven't got many markets in the UK market, I don't think, but it's looking like that's going to improve. Did you see that they're doing like a Return of the Jedi battle pack where you get the Falcon and 2 TIE fighters?
I did. I did indeed. I'm liking the look of that. The problem is they make so many announcements, and every one I've seen so far, I really, really want to get. So, yeah, it could get rather expensive.
It could indeed, but it'll be worth it. It'll be worth it.
Yeah, I have to admit, the Falcon. I will have to. I keep saying I've got to do a review for Jedi News, and I've got to sit down and get it properly photographed because, for me, that's a beautiful piece and really fun. So yeah, I love it.
Awesome stuff. Well, I think that wraps it up. Unless you've got any further messages or questions or thoughts, Jason.
No, I think obviously it's been great to have chance. Obviously I've missed out a couple of times recently due to work commitments, and it's nice to be able to sit and talk Star Wars with you as always.
Well, I've certainly enjoyed it, so thank you very much. Where can the people find you on social media, Jason?
Oh, I knew you were going to ask me that one. Mm-hmm. It's at Hondo Ling.
Fantastic. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Geordie Jedi Pete. You can find the podcast on Twitter at Boars Star. You can also find the podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Star Wars Podcast. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, please leave us a top review. Not only does it make us all smile here, but it also helps other people find the podcast, which would be fantastic. If you are listening on any other type of podcast software or app, or just listen on a browser, and if it gives you an option to leave a review, again, just leave us a top review. Takes you a few moments, but it makes us smile for quite a few hours, and again, allows people to find the podcast, and we greatly appreciate it. Will be hopefully a Patreon coming soon for Star Wars, so keep your eyes peeled for that. We're working on that. It should be coming in the coming months, and there should also be some giveaways coming to the social media, including some definitely some Star Wars figures will be up for grabs in giveaways, and possibly some Star Wars books as well, which will be really, really interesting. But again, thank you very much for tuning in. May the Force be with you all, and remember, always tell that to Kanja Club.
Hello, Star Wars listeners. This is Savannah Odit. You might know me as host of The Dorky Diva Show with my co-host Brian Balance. I am also producer of The Adventures of the Zolan Dart, which is a Star Wars-inspired audio drama that we produced over the last year. If you love stories about smugglers, courage, heroic characters, and maybe a few foes along the way, you should go to thedorkydivashow.com and listen to The Adventures of the Zolan Dart today.
Shout! We've got your pigs.
Were any of the critters harmed?
What did you do now?
I didn't do anything. I just freaked out for no reason.
It was nice doing business with you again. Maybe next time we could deliver something less temperamental.
Now, what you call temperamental, I call fun.
Hey, is there a place nearby where I can make some repairs?
3 clicks south of here, you'll find a small spaceport. They should have what you need, as long as it's nothing too big.
Dynamic class? My stars, you don't hear about many of those still being space-worthy.
It's been in my family for a while.
She's pretty great. Any chance you have a hover cart we can use to load up?
I'll check out the HoloNet to see if anything new has come up in the sector.
My name is Sereth Kon. I am the chief here on Kamai. My people and I have been experiencing food shortages as of late due to unforeseen natural occurrences. We are looking to hire someone.
I say we take this one. The pay is great, and it's the type of job we're familiar with.
Welcome. You must be Captain Otoa. I've already sent word to Pack 2 to expect you in the next cycle or so.
You told him we were coming before we even accepted the job. That's rather presumptuous, isn't it?
Perhaps, though once I received confirmation that you were interested and on your way here, I couldn't help but hope.
Fair enough. Well, we'll be back as soon as we can.
Well, that's not good.
Is that blaster fire I hear?
So you're the one.
Captain, it sounds like they want to do this the hard way.
I love when they got some fight in them.
This is bad. This is bad. We're about to have a lot of company.
I'll see you soon.